Hello, English teachers. If you are learning teaching methods, you are in the right YouTube channel. So, our session today is about the suggestopedia. The originator of this method is Georgi Lazanov, and he believes that language learning can occur at a much faster rate than ordinarily transpires. The reason for our inefficiency, Lazanov asserts, is that we set up psychological barriers to learning. We fear that we will be unable to perform, that we will be limited in our ability to learn, that we will fail. One result is that we do not use the full mental powers that we have. According to Lazanov and others, we may be using only 5 to 10% of our mental capacity. In order to make better use of our reserve capacity, the limitations we think we have need to be disuggested. Desuggestopedia, the application of the study of suggestion to pedagogy, has been developed to help students eliminate the feeling that they cannot be successful or the negative associations they may have towards studying, and thus to help them overcome the barriers to learning. One of the ways the students' mental reserves are stimulated is through integration of the fine arts, an important contribution to the method made by Lazanov's scholar Evelina Gateva. Now, let's see an experience at a university class in Egypt. The first thing when we enter the classroom, the first thing we notice is how different this classroom is compared with all the other classrooms we have been in so far. Everything is bright and colorful. There are several posters on the walls. Most of them are travel posters with the scenes from the United Kingdom. A few, however, contain grammatical information. One has the conjugation of the verb to be and the subject pronouns. Another has the object and possessive pronouns. So let's think about the experience. Let's now investigate this suggestopedia in our usual fashion. First, we will list our observations. From these, we will attempt to uncover the principles of this suggestopedia. So if you see the word she or her, this refers to the teacher. So first, the classroom is bright and colorful. And principle, learning is facilitated in a cheerful environment. Teacher tries to be cheerful and tries to be kind, so the students feel confident. Among the posters hanging around the room are several containing grammatical information. A student can learn from what is present in the environment, even if his attention is not directed to it. Peripheral learning. The teacher speaks confidently. If the students trust and respect the teacher's authority, they will accept and retain information better. The teacher gives students the impression that learning target language will be easy and enjoyable. The teacher should recognize that learners bring certain psychological barriers with them to the learning situation. Teachers should attempt to disuggest this. The students choose new names and identities. Assuming a new identity enhances students' feeling of security and allows them to be more open. They feel less inhibited since their performance is really that of a different person. The students introduce themselves to the teacher. The dialect that the students learn contains language they can use immediately. They play rhythmic instruments as they sing a song. Songs are useful for freeing the speech muscles and evoking positive emotions. The teacher distributes a lengthy handout to the class. The title of the dialogue is "To want to is to be able to." The teacher should integrate indirect positive suggestions. There is no limit to what you can do into the learning situation. The teacher briefly mentions a few points about English grammar and vocabulary. These are in bold in print in the dialogue. The teacher should present and explain the grammar and vocabulary, but not dwell on them. The bold print allows the students' focus to shift from the whole text to the details before they return to the whole text again. The dynamic interplay between the whole and the parts is important. There are reproductions of classical paintings throughout the class. Fine art provides positive suggestions for students. In the left column is the dialect in the target language. In the right column is the native language translation. One way that meaning is made clear is through native language translation. The teacher reads the dialect with a musical accompaniment. She matches her voice to rhythm and intonation of music. Communication takes place on two planes. On the linguistic message is encoded, and on the other are factors which influence the linguistic message. On the conscious plane, the learner attends to the language. On the subconscious plane, the music suggests that learning is easy and pleasant. When there is a unity between conscious and subconscious, learning is enhanced. The teacher reads the script a second time as the students listen. This is done to different music. A calm state, such as the state one experiences when listening to a concert, is ideal for overcoming psychological barriers and for taking advantage of learning potential. For homework, the students are to read the dialogue at night and in the morning. At these times, the distinction between the conscious and subconscious is most blurred and therefore learning can occur. The teacher gives the students hats to wear for the different characters in the dialogue. The students take turns reading portions of the dialogue. Dramatization is a particularly valuable way of playfully activating the material. Fantasy reduces barriers to learning. The teacher tells students that they are auditioning for a play. The fine arts, music, art, and drama enable suggestions to reach subconscious. The arts should therefore be integrated as much as possible into the teaching process. The teacher leads the class in various activities involving the dialogue. For example, question and answer, repetition, and translation. The teacher should help the students activate the material to which they have been exposed. The means of doing this should be varied so as to avoid repetition as much as possible. Novelty aids acquisition. The teacher teaches the students a children's song. Music and movement reinforce the linguistic material. It is desirable that students achieve a state of infantilization so that they will be more open to learning. If they trust the teacher, they will reach this state more easily. The teacher and students play a question and answer game. In an atmosphere of play, the conscious attention of the learner doesn't focus on linguistic forms, but rather than on using the language. Learning can be fun. The student makes an error by saying, "How you do?" The teacher corrects the error in a soft voice. Errors are corrected gently, not in a direct, confrontational manner. So let's review the principles. Let's now follow our usual procedure of reviewing the core principles of a method by answering over 10 questions. So first question, what are the goals of the teacher who used the Suggestopedia? Teachers hope to accelerate the process by which students learn to use another language for everyday communication. In order to do this, more of the students' mental powers must be tapped. This is accomplished by suggesting the psychological barriers learners bring with them to the learning situation. Second question, what is the role of the teacher? What is the role of the students? The teacher is the authority. The students must trust and respect the teacher. The students will retain information better from someone in whom they have confidence, since they will be more responsive to the teacher's suggesting their limitations and suggesting how easy it will be for them to succeed. Once the students trust the teacher, they can feel more secure. If they feel secure, they can be more spontaneous and less inhibited. Third question, what are some characteristics of the teaching and learning process? The course is conducted in a classroom that is bright and cheerful. Posters displaying grammatical information about the target language are hung around the room in order to take advantage of students' peripheral learning. The posters are changed every few weeks. Students select target language names and choose new occupations. During the course, they create whole biographies to go along with their new identities. The text students work from are handouts containing lengthy dialogues in the target language. Next to the dialogue, the translation is the student's native language. There are also some notes on vocabulary and grammar which correspond to bold-faced items in the dialogue. Fourth question, what's the nature of student-teacher interaction? What's the nature of student-student interaction? The teacher initiates interactions with the whole group of students and with individuals right from the beginning of a language course. Initially, the students can only respond non-verbally or with a few target language words they have practiced. Later, the students have more control of the target language and can respond more appropriately even initiate interaction themselves. 5. How are the feelings of the students dealt with? A great deal of attention is given to students' feelings in this method. One of the fundamental principles of this method is that if students are relaxed and confident, they will not need to try hard to learn the language. It will just come naturally and easily. It's considered important in this method that the psychological barriers that students bring with them be disaggested. Indirect positive suggestions are made to enhance students' self-confidence and convince them that success is obtainable. Students also choose target language names on the assumption that a new identity makes students feel more secure and thus more open to learning. 6. How is language viewed? How is culture viewed? Language is the first of two planes in the two-plane process of communication. In the second plane are the factors which influence the linguistic message. For example, the way one dresses or the nonverbal behavior one uses affects how one's linguistic message is interpreted. The culture which students learn concerns the everyday life of people who speak the language. The use of the fine arts is also important in the suggestopedia classes. What areas of language are emphasized? What language skills are emphasized? Vocabulary is emphasized. Claims about the success of the method often focus on the large number of words that can be acquired. Grammar is dealt with explicitly but minimally. In fact, it's believed that students will learn best if their conscious attention is focused, not on the language forms but on using the language. Speaking communicatively is emphasized. Students also read in the target language, for example, dialogues, and write in it, for example, imaginative compositions. 8. What's the role of the student's native language? Native language translation is used to make the meaning of the dialect clear. The teacher also uses the native language in class when necessary. As the course proceeds, the teacher uses the native language less and less. 9. How is evaluation accomplished? Evaluation usually is conducted on the student's normal in-class performance and not through formal tests, which would threaten the relaxed atmosphere considered essential for accelerated learning. 10. How does the teacher respond to student errors? Errors are corrected gently. with the teacher using a soft voice. Now let's review the techniques. If you find the Suggestopedia's principles meaningful, you may want to try some of the following techniques or to alter your classroom environment. Even if not all of them appeal to you, there may be some elements you could usefully adapt to your own teaching style. Classroom setup. The challenge for the teacher is to create a classroom environment that's bright and cheerful. This was accomplished in the classroom we visited, where the walls were decorated with scenes from a country where the target language is spoken. These conditions are not always possible. However, the teacher should try to provide as positive an environment as possible. Peripheral learning. This technique is based upon the idea that we perceive much more in our environment than we consciously notice. It claims that by putting posters containing grammatical information about the target language on the classroom walls, students will absorb the necessary facts effortlessly. The teacher may or may not call attention to the posters. They are changed from time to time to provide grammatical information that is appropriate to what students are studying. Positive suggestion. It is the teacher's responsibility or orchestrate the suggestive factors in a learning situation, thereby helping students break down the barriers to learning that they bring with them. Teachers can do this through direct and indirect means. Direct suggestion appeals to the student's consciousness. A teacher tells students they are going to be successful, but indirect suggestion, which appeals to the student's subconscious, is actually the more powerful of the two. For example, indirect suggestion was accomplished in the class we visited through the choice of a dialogue entitled "To want to is to be able to." Choose a new identity. Students choose a target language name and a new occupation. As the course continues, the students have an opportunity to develop a whole biography about their fictional selves. For instance, later on they may be asked to talk or write about their fictional hometown, childhood, and family. Role play. Students are asked to pretend temporarily that they are someone else and to perform in the target language as if they were that person. They are often asked to create their own lines relevant to the situation. In the lesson we observed, the students were asked to pretend that they were someone else and to introduce themselves as that person. First concert. The two concepts are components of the receptive phase of the lesson. After the teacher has introduced the story as related in the dialogue and has called her students' attention to some particular grammatical points that arise in it, she reads the dialogue in the target language. The students have copied of the dialogue in the target language in their native language and refer to it as the teacher is reading. Music is played. After a few minutes, the teacher begins a slow dramatic reading, synchronized in an intonation with the music. The music is classical. The early romantic period is suggested. The teacher's voice rises and falls with the music. Second concert. In the second phase, the students are asked to put their scripts aside. They simply listen as the teacher reads the dialogue at normal speed. The teacher is seated and reads with the musical accompaniment. Thus, the content governs the way the teacher reads the script, not the music, which is pre-classical or baroque. At the conclusion of this concept, the class ends for the day.